Elton John and Princess Diana had a unique bond that everyone else could only wish for. Their friendship was the most highly publicized relationship. In the limelight, they were seen everywhere together, smiling and being there for one another during some rough times. Elton, being the lively and warm person he is, was there for Diana at her worst moments. But though they were great friends, a lot of what went on behind the scenes was always a secret. People have been left wondering for years. What was going on between them? What did they say to each other when the cameras weren't there? Now all this. While Elton John finally spoke up the secret about their friendship, has been kept hidden for so long. And now Elton is about to spill it. What's it going to be? What does he know that was never uttered before the early years of Elton John? Elton John, born Reginald Kenneth Dwight, on March 25th, 1947, in Pinner, Middlesex. Now part of London, came from a musical family. His dad, Stanley Dwight, was a trumpet player, while his mom Sheila had a more outgoing personality. Reginald was the oldest child, but his parents' marriage was troubled. They separated when he was just 14, which deeply affected him. Elton was largely brought up by his maternal grandmother and supportive mother, in contrast to his cold father. Following his parents' breakup, his mother married Fred Fairbrother, a stepfather whom Elton adored and referred to as Duff, the reverse of Fred, as a child. Elton had a natural talent for music. He began to play the piano as a child, and when he was 11, he won a scholarship to attend the Royal Academy of Music. But he was not an average student. Elton would regularly miss classes to travel around London on the Underground, and disliked going to classical music classes as they were dull, despite that he would still pass his exams comfortably due to his natural ability. When Elton was 17, he dropped out of school on the eve of his A-levels to start a career in music, much to the dismay of his father. His father wished that he would find a more secure career, such as working for a bank. But Elton had other aspirations. He started performing at a local pub, playing popular numbers alongside his own work. He joined a band at the age of 15 called Bluesology, where he started gaining even more fame. Elton's life took a turn in 1967, when he replied to an advertisement in a music magazine. He met Bernie Taupin, a lyricist, who had composed some words without music. The two of them hit it off immediately, and Elton wrote melodies for Bernie's lyrics. This association proved to be the start of one of the greatest collaborations in music history. Elton renamed himself Elton John in honor of two members of the band, and subsequently legally appended Hercules. After a favorite television character, he and Bernie collaborated as staff, songwriters writing songs for other performers. Their first major success was when they wrote songs for singers such as Lulu and Roger Cook. Their collaboration went on to expand, and by the early 1970s, Elton John was on his path to stardom, with music that would permanently alter pop and rock history. Love Loss and Speaking His Truth. Elton John's personal life has experienced its fair share of UPS and downs, but he's never been shy about the path he travelled until he was finally able to be happy in his relationships years ago, in the late 1960s, when Elton was still a relatively unknown commodity. He was engaged to a woman named Linda Woodrow. She bankrolled him and his songwriting partner, Bernie Taupin, during their formative days. But only 2 weeks before the wedding, Elton cancelled it, thanks to some wise words from Bernie and musician Long John Baldry. The ordeal was painful, but it would later find its way into Elton's emotional ballad, Someone Save My Life. Tonight, years later in 2020 though, not having been in contact for 50 years, Elton assisted in paying Linda's medical expenses when she reached out for assistance. following his massive breakthrough in America in 1970. Elton's first gay relationship was with John Reid, who was also his manager. They spent 5 years together, and even though their relationship was not sexual, Reid continued to manage him until 1998. It came as a shock to everyone. In 1984, when Elton married a woman German, recording engineer Renate Blauweil. It was a stylish wedding in Australia. Decided to get married at all. And why in Australia? Well, I never found the right person to marry before. And now I have. But nothing was as it appeared. During their honeymoon, Elton informed her that he wished to terminate the marriage, and she subsequently informed him that she had tried to commit suicide. Their marriage came to an end in 1988. Looking back on it, Elton confessed she was the classiest woman I've ever met, but it wasn't meant to be. I was living a lie. Elton came out as bisexual in a 1976 Rolling Stone interview. Other people unhappy because they're being sexually. You know, if you think you're gay, it's a whole trip. For a start, later in 1992, he told the magazine, "I'm quite comfortable about being gay in 1993. Elton met David Furnish, a Toronto filmmaker. They were strong from the very beginning on December 21st, 2005, the date. Civil partnerships came into law in the UK. They formalized their union, and when same-sex marriage came into law in 2014, they remarried on their civil partnership anniversary. They also have 2 surrogate sons, Zachary and Elijah, and are godparents to some celebrity offspring, including Brooklyn and Romeo Beckham. Elton has also never been afraid of speaking out. He once commented in The Observer Religion, has always tried to turn hatred toward gay people. It turns people into hateful lemmings. He's also had death threats for things said like naming Jesus, a compassionate, super-intelligent gay man. Even during the uproar, Elton remains a firm advocate for love, equality and self-honesty. Elton John's lavish lifestyle and spending habits. Elton John is famous not only for his songs and outrageous stage wear, he's also well known for living lavishly in 2009. The Sunday Times Rich list approximated his net worth at $175 million, approximately $265 million, making him one of the wealthiest in Britain by 2019. His net worth had ballooned to an impressive $320 million, ranking him among the top 10 wealthiest personalities in the British music industry. He has several fabulous houses all over the world, his primary home, Woodside in Old Windsor, to stunning locations in London, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Venice. And Nice, his French residence, is located on the upmarket Montparnasse. In addition to all that property, Elton's an avid art enthusiast. He's particularly renowned for acquiring photographs and is reported to possess one of the world's largest private photographic collections. But it's not merely about having things. Elton isn't reluctant to spend, either in a 2000 interview. He freely confessed to having spent $30 million in less than 2 years. That's about $1, $5 million per month. Some of it went into houses, but he also supposedly spent close to $293,000 on flowers alone within that period. In 2001, having a realization that he hardly had time to relish his luxury cars, Elton auctioned 20 of them at Christie's. One such car was a 1993 Jaguar XJ220, which was sold for $234,000, $750. The entire sale collected nearly $2 million. 2 years later, in 2003, he auctioned the interior of his Holland Park residence to accommodate more of his contemporary art collection, constantly brainstorming how he could give back. Elton has operated an annual pop-up shop known as Elton's Closet, where he auctioned off his second-hand clothes to donate funds to charity since 2004. His name showed up in the Pandora Papers in 2021. A massive leak revealing celebrities and politicians said to have utilized tax havens the early life of Princess Diana. Princess Diana was born on July 1st, 1961 at Park House in Sandringham, Norfolk. She was the fourth of 5 children, born to John Spencer, Viscount Althorpe, and Frances Spencer Naroche, who were both from a titled family and had close associations with the British royal family. Indeed, each of Diana's grandmothers had been ladies in waiting to Queen Elizabeth. The Queen Mother, the family wished for a boy to continue the Spencer name. So it took them a week to decide on a name, Diana Frances, after her mother and an ancestor who had once been considered as a bride for a future king as a child. Diana was lovingly referred to as Duchess, by her family paying homage to her royal heirs. Even as a child, Diana was christened at St. Mary Magdalene Church, close to her residence on August 30th, 1961. Diana had 3 surviving siblings, Sarah Jane and Charles. Her infant brother John died before she was born. The loss and the pressure of having to deliver a male heir strained her parents' marriage. Her brother Charles once declared it was a dreadful time for my parents, and probably the root of their divorce, because I don't think they ever got over it. Following her parents' breakup in 1967, Diana stayed with her mother in London temporarily, but towards the end of Christmas that year her father refused to let her come back with assistance from her maternal grandmother. He gained full custody of Diana. Her father married again in 1976 to Reine, Countess of Dartmouth. Diana did not get along with her new stepmother, even referring to her as a bully. Once Diana was so angry that she pushed Reine down the stairs. Later she spoke about her childhood, referring to it very unhappy and very unstable. The whole thing in 1975, when her father was created, Earl Spencer Diana became Lady Diana, and the family relocated to the Spencer family home, Althorpe in North Hampshire. When Diana met Charles, Diana first laid eyes on Prince Charles the Queen's eldest son and future king in November 1977, when she was a mere 16 years of age. Interestingly, Charles was then dating her older sister, Sarah. Jump forward a couple of years to the summer of 1980. Charles was 29, and finally started considering Diana seriously as a wife. Things progressed rapidly after that. He asked her to spend a sailing weekend on the Royal Yacht Britannia, and then come to Balmoral Castle in Scotland to see his family. Diana impressed everyone, including the Queen Mother and Prince Philip Charles, subsequently began to see her regularly in London, and on February 6, 1981, proposed at Windsor Castle. Diana accepted, but kept it a secret for more than 2 weeks. Their engagement was formally announced on February 24th, 1981. Diana, who was then an assistant nursery teacher, chose her own engagement ring. She lived in Clarence House and subsequently Buckingham Palace, where she spent the preceding months to the wedding. According to biographer Ingrid Seward, Diana's time there was incredibly lonely, despite loneliness. Diana publicly appeared with Charles for the first time in March 1981, at a charity ball where she met Princess Grace of Monaco. Diana broke tradition as the first English woman to wed the future king in more than 300 years, and the first royal bride to have worked for pay before engagement. On July 29, 1981, Charles married Diana at St. Paul's Cathedral in what the world referred to as a fairy tale wedding. She was 20. An estimated 750 million viewers saw the wedding on television, and 600 believers queued up in the streets at the altar. Diana accidentally reversed Charles's names, referring to him as Philip Charles, rather than Charles Philip, and decided to omit the usual vow to obey him, a surprising and radical step. At the time, she had a dress that cost $9. 0, featuring an eye catching 25-foot-long train. Only a few years after her marriage, the Queen inducted her into the family, allowing her to wear Queen Mary's lover's knot tiara, and grant her the Royal Family Order of Elizabeth II. Diana's journey with William and Harry following their wedding. Diana and Prince Charles spent time between two residences, London's Kensington Palace and Highgrove House in the countryside around Teddington on November 5th, 1981. A few months after the wedding, the royal family joyously announced that Diana was pregnant with her first child. But behind the scenes, it was not always plain sailing. At only 12 weeks pregnant, Diana tumbled down a staircase at Sandringham despite being bruised. The unborn baby was okay later. Diana confessed that she had thrown herself down the stairs because she was so inadequate. It was a cry for help at a very lonely and emotional moment. On June 21st, 1982, Diana gave birth to her first child, Prince William, following motherhood. She also suffered from postpartum depression, a subject not often discussed within royal circles during those days. Nevertheless, Diana remained devoted to being hands-on. She shocked many by taking baby William with her on her first major royal tour to Australia and New Zealand. Initially, she hadn't intended to do so, but was persuaded by Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser's suggestion. Her choice was highly applauded and endeared her to the public even more 2 years after that on September 15th, 1984. Diana gave birth to her second son, Prince Harry. She was once quoted as saying that she and Charles were closest when she was pregnant with Harry. She knew she was carrying a boy, but refused to tell anyone, least of all Charles, who had been longing for a daughter. Diana defied tradition in the way she parented. She named both her sons, sacked the royal nanny, and employed her own, selected their schools and outfits, and even took them to school herself whenever possible. Her life was dictated by theirs. She once joked that Harry was naughty, just like me, and referred to William as my little wise old man, someone she relied on emotionally. By the time he was in his early teens, Diana and Charles's troubled marriage. 5 years into their marriage, the fissures between Diana and Charles were impossible to miss. Their natures conflicted. The age difference was glaring, and both felt further apart by 1986. Diana had begun a romantic affair with James Hewitt, the family's former riding master, while Charles had rekindled his past passion with Camilla Parker Bowles. There were rumours for years that Hewitt could be Prince Harry's father, due to their resemblance. But this was consistently denied. Actually, Harry was born 2 years prior to Diana and Hewitt, even starting their affair by 1987. There was no doubt that things were not right between Diana and Charles, and the press began to refer to them as the Glums, because of their chilly and awkward public appearances in 1989. Diana confronted Camilla at a birthday party and told her, "I know what's going on between you and Charles, and I just want you to know that it got even more complicated in 1992, when Andrew Morton released Diana her true story, such as Diana's inner turmoil and even suicidal tendencies. Though she claimed not to have directly been involved, it was discovered later on that Diana had secretly taped the interviews for the book. On those tapes, she tearfully testified, "Charles made me feel so inadequate in every possible way that each time I came up for air, he pushed me down again that same year." Tapes of Diana's private phone calls were leaked, followed by another scandal called Tampongate between Charles and Camilla. The couple formally separated in December 1992. Diana also talked of being deeply in love with a man believed to be her ex-bodyguard, Barry Manicky, on tapes, made by her voice coach. She told him she'd been willing to give all this up and just live with him. Sadly, Manaki died in a motorcycle accident shortly afterwards, although the Queen and Prince Philip tried to repair the marriage. Both Diana and Charles had mentally checked out. Their marriage had gone beyond repair. The interview that changed everything in 1995. Princess Diana made history when she sat down with journalist Martin Bashir on BBC's Panorama. This was no run-of-the-mill royal interview. It was raw, emotional, and personal. Diana spoke candidly of her infidelities and verified that she and Prince Charles had both been unfaithful, discussing his current affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. She famously stated there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. She also doubted whether Charles was fit to reign, and conceded that she had struggled with mental illnesses, including depression, bulimia, and self-injury. "I was ill with postnatal depression," she said, describing how she was frequently alone and under stress. Subsequently, it was revealed that Bashir had employed forged bank documents to influence Diana and her brother to have faith in him. An inquiry headed by Lord Dyson established that Bashir had played on Diana's fears and paranoia, which Prince William later publicly condemned. The interview was the last straw within a month. In December 1995, Queen Elizabeth wrote to Diana and Charles alike, calling for them to divorce. Charles obliged in double time, and Diana soon stated her own in February 1996, shocking Buckingham Palace by breaking the news ahead of all finalization. That same year, things got messier when Diana accused Charles's assistant, Tiggy Leg Borg, of having an abortion. The accusation turned out to be false, and possibly planted by Bashir to gain Diana's trust for the interview. Diana's private secretary resigned over the scandal, later revealing she had exulted in making the claim. The divorce was finalized on August 28, 1996. Diana was awarded a £17 million settlement, shared custody of her sons, and was forced to relinquish the title. Her Royal Highness the Queen allegedly wanted her to retain it, but Charles would not have it. Otherwise, Prince William reassured her, saying, "Don't worry, Mommy, I will give it back to you one day when I am king." Elton John and Princess Diana's friendship by 1981. Elton John was a regular at royal gatherings. The Queen Mother and Princess Margaret had been his fans since the 70s. He played at Prince Andrew's 21st birthday party that year, and wound up dancing with Princess Anne, and even Queen Elizabeth herself. I did my best to concoct a facial expression that implied this was a completely normal state of affairs. He quipped in his memoir, Me. But then Princess Diana came into the ballroom. She was gifted with a fabulous social ease. Elton said that night in 1981, "We clicked right away. We ended up miming the Charleston while laughing at the weakness of the disco." That evening marked the beginning of a profound friendship that endured highs and lows. They became united through their mutual humor, fame, and suffering. Over the years, I knew her. She was fabulous company, the best dinner party guest, incredibly indiscreet, a real gossip. Elton also remembered one rowdy instance at a dinner party when Diana and actor Richard Guire were in intense discussion, much to the dismay of Sylvester Stallone. It was apparent Diana and Richard were smitten. With each other, Stallone wasn't pleased. He remembered there ensued a near fistfight, but Diana remained serene and gracious. She was completely unruffled. Diana's warmth was felt far beyond the world of celebrity. Elton admired her courage, particularly the time she held hands with an AIDS victim. At that moment, she altered the public perception of AIDS forever. He said, however, they had a bad spell in 1997 due to a charity book scheme. Diana pulled out at the last minute, and Elton was upset. She wrote a formal letter beginning with "Dear Mr. John," and they didn't talk for some time. She seemed to be losing touch with people who were honest with her. He fretted, But after Gianni Versace's tragic murder, Diana called Elton. "I'm so sorry. It was a silly falling out. Let's be friends," she said. They reunited, laughed, and made plans to meet again. Sadly, that meeting never happened. Princess Diana's death on August 31st, 1997. Diana, Princess of Wales, died in a car accident in the Pontalima Tunnel in Paris. Her driver was attempting to outrun the paparazzi, and the accident also killed her companion, Dodi Fayed, and their driver, Henry Paul. Diana was taken to a hospital but was declared dead at approximately 4 a.m. Her funeral, conducted on September 6, 1997, was viewed by millions across the globe. It was one of the most viewed events in history, with over 2.5 billion people watching. Diana was later that day buried at Althorpe, her family estate on an island. In its grounds, her grave was selected for privacy, so that her sons, William and Harry, and other relatives could visit her in peace. Although there were initial plans to bury her in a church vault in Great Britain, fears for public safety resulted in her being buried at Althorpe. Lord Spencer, Diana's brother, praised Diana during the funeral service, saying she proved in the last year that she needed no royal title to continue to generate her particular brand of magic. This scene, along with the eloquent funeral service, captured the affection and regard of the people. For Diana, the first probe into Diana's death found that her chauffeur, Henry Paul, was drunk speeding and under the influence of prescription medication when the accident happened. But Dodi's father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, thought the accident was intentional and blamed MI6 and Prince Philip for plotting it. In 2004, a British inquest began. And in 2008, the jury reached a verdict that the deaths resulted from unlawful killing by Paul's careless driving and the chasing paparazzi Al-Fayed. Following a 10-year campaign, ended his attempt to establish that it was murder, stating he did not want to cause Diana's children any more distress. Elton John's heartbreaking tribute and confession early on the morning of August 31st, 1997. Elton John was awakened by the ringing of his fax machine. A London friend had sent a message. So sorry to hear about this awful news. Puzzled, Elton switched on the television and was shocked to hear that his close friend, Princess Diana, had perished in a fatal car accident just weeks earlier. Elton was doing something he never dreamed of performing at Diana's funeral. He sang a specially written version of his hit song, Candle in the Wind, rewritten by his longtime lyricist Bernie, tuned to commemorate Diana. One of the poignant lines read, "You called out to our country, and you whispered to those in pain." The performance was very emotional. There was a sense in which it was the biggest gig of my life. For 4 minutes, I was going to be the center of the world's attention, but equally, it wasn't an Elton John moment. It wasn't about me at all. He said in his memoir, "Me, Elton's heart was broken that day. Not only for his friend's loss, but also for her 2 sons, William and Harry, were shell-shocked." He recalled they were 15 and 12. "And I thought that the way they were treated that day was utterly inhuman." He was wounded to his core, watching the boys marching behind the coffin of their mother, set to remain strong, as the rest of the world gazed upon them. It was a vile way to treat 2 kids who just lost their mom. Years later, Elton remains close to Diana through her sons. When Prince Harry experienced intense media scrutiny in 2019, Elton spoke out. "I have a deep sense of duty to shield Harry and his family from the unwarranted press intrusion that led to Diana's premature death. For Elton, Diana's spirit continues to live on, not only in memories, but in her sons." Sir Elton John has admitted that the 1990s rift with Princess Diana could have been due to pressure from the palace. In an interview on CNN's Larry King Live, Elton explained that her last-minute withdrawal cut him deeply, implying royal pressure behind her move titles and honors to Lady Diana. Diana was born with the name, the Honourable Diana Frances Spencer, upon her father's promotion as Earl Spencer. In 1975, she was accorded the title of Lady Diana Spencer when she married Prince Charles. She became Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales. In addition to other titles such as Duchess of Rothesay and Countess of Chester, after her 1996 divorce, she was Diana Princess of Wales, but without the Her Royal Highness title, although most referred to her as Princess Diana. This was never an official title. A few still call her Lady Diana Spencer or Lady Di. There were discussions of restoring her HRH title after her death, but her family determined it would not have been her choice. Elton John and Princess Diana had an intimate and private friendship, founded on mutual trust and respect. Despite their contrasting environments, Diana being part of the royal clique, and Elton being a pop music icon, internationally their camaraderie was sincere and well, meaning Elton always looked up to Diana for being kind-hearted and for her charity efforts, and he was always willing to stand beside her in rough times. Diana, for her part, took comfort in the company of Elton, and their friendship provided her with moments of joy in a frequently troubled and public existence. Elton's powerful rendition of Candle in the Wind during Diana's funeral was a touching tribute, a demonstration of their friendship. Elton himself called it the biggest gig of my life, but added that it wasn't about him. It was about paying tribute to his close friend. Their friendship made a lasting impression on both their lives, and it is still remembered with love and affection. Their relationship proved that even in the cutthroat world of fame, real friendships can grow from mutual understanding, love, and values. If you liked learning about their gorgeous friendship, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more knowledge.